What is going on, everybody? Welcome in Monday morning edition of the Daily Dime here at FTNFantasy.com. My name is Zac Graham, aka Kawaisenberg DFS, running solo here on our Monday, our MLK Day, which you know in the NBA means we've got games all day. We've already got Hornets and Mavs tipped off. So if you are an FTN Fantasy subscriber, you already got a couple picks from Alex in that Pick'em Games channel because he wanted to get on that Mark Williams PRA ladder. A couple of those picks he and I discussed before I went live here. And so, again, some of those picks we will discuss on stream and some of the thinking behind them. But you got two plays if you're a subscriber. We'll get some more here on the stream. I see P Mike in here, and let's go, boys. Good to see you, P Mike. Everybody else, as you're filing in, if you're over there on Twitter, you can come over to the YouTube and jump into the live chat while I'm live here. And of course, whether you're watching live or on the replay, subscribe to the channel here on YouTube and hitting the like button on this show. Both of those things help us grow the show and grow the channel. So again, since the games have already tipped off here, and we have our main slate lock at 2 p.m. Eastern time today, we'll go ahead and jump right into the picks here this morning. So let's bring up underdog. We'll get a couple zooms here, and we are off. I want to start talking about the Cavs, and we'll talk about the Cavs a lot in the DFS portion here after we get done with the props, but no Evan Mobley here tonight. So the first place we are going to go is Jarrett Allen. Now, this is one of the two Cavs picks that was already given out in the Discord about a half hour ago, but no Evan Mobley. Matchup here tonight against the Suns. Cavs 8-point home favorites. 237 implied total in this one. We know Nick Richards in town or on the Suns now, made his debut on Saturday. That's not going to dissuade me from Jarrett Allen or any of these Cavs, the shorthanded Cavs with Mobley out. 1.16 FanDuel points per minute for Jarrett Allen on the season. And again, reminder that our fantasy score props here, whether it's on Underdog or on PrizePicks, is using that identical scoring to FanDuel. So have our FanDuel projections here at FTN Fantasy. So you can use those as a nice handy guide when you do a sweep through the fantasy score board. And shout out to Underdog. We've got the early games today. They got our fantasy score props up early. So this is something we don't normally get to do on the stream. And those who tune in to the Daily Dime on a regular basis know that I love me some fantasy score props. So we are going higher than 34.85 fantasy points for Jarrett Allen here tonight. Again, 1.16 FanDuel points per minute on the season, but up to 1.28 with no Evan Mobley. And that's a 620-minute sample here in this current season. We've got him projected for 38.5 fantasy score here in the model. So I love this Jarrett Allen prop here. We were all over him on Sunday's slate when Mobley got ruled out, and that was against the Wolves. Did not come through, but again, we've got such a significant sample here on JA that I really like this one here today, and I think we can pair it just like we're going to be pairing some Cavs in our DFS lineups today. I think we can pair some of these props together because Darius Garland also benefits without Evan Mobley. And now this points prop was at 21.5. Obviously liked that a little bit more than this 22, but I still think higher than 22 points is a great pick here on Darius Garland. We've got him projected for 25.7 points here against the Suns. Again, the Suns, not a team I'm afraid of on the defensive side of the ball, even with a guy like Ryan Dunn inserted into that starting lineup, Royce O'Neal, Grayson Allen back healthy. Darius Garland, 27% usage rate on the season. It goes up to 29.3% without Mobley. That's a 553-minute sample for Garland this season. Again, I mentioned that we haven't projected for that 25.7 points here against the Suns at home. And we have a smaller sample size of just full games without Evan Mobley this season. Darius Garland, 29, 24, and 29 points respectively in those 3 games. So you see here, right, Underdog gives us the ladder opportunity. If you wanted to take it up to that 1.26x at 24.5, I'm fine with it. I do not have any of those in my entries here this morning, but I do have this 22 throughout in a number of 3-pick plays here. So wanted to talk about those Cavs from the prop perspective here first. And let's move on. We can move on to another game. We'll take one from either side of Grizzlies and Wolves here tonight. We can just go to the fantasy points board here because we're going to grab these pair of fantasy point props. First, Ja Morant. Again, Grizzlies tonight, 6-point home favorites, 237 implied total. So a pair of 237s that we've talked about here. These games going to get up and down. Ja Morant over the last handful of games has gotten back over 30 minutes on a fairly consistent basis. 2 games ago, he crested 37 minutes. So that is a departure from what we saw him hovering in the high 20s through the first, 2 months or so this year. And on the full season, 33.9% usage rate, so essentially 34% usage there, 1.36 FanDuel points per minute this season. We've got him projected for 40.7 in the model here this morning. So I'm a fan of getting to Ja here with how explosive he has been. That very efficient fantasy rate, 1.36 FanDuel points per minute. So I like getting that Ja Morant in here as 6-point home favorites. Like Memphis getting healthy, still going to miss Marcus Smart tonight. Of course, Vince Williams still out, Cam Spencer still out. I think they sent my guy Yuki Kawamura down to the G League because they recalled G.G. Jackson. G.G. Jackson should make his regular season debut here with the Grizzlies after, I think, 18 points in a G League stint over the weekend. I think 5 of 16 from the field. So the quintessential GG game there in his G League run of late. But that's a great thing to see for this Memphis team. And then I mentioned going to something on the other side here. Julius Randle. Now, I do want to preface this, and this is one that if you're a subscriber, you did not get this Randle pick in Alex's entries this morning because we actually disagree on it. Not that Alex thinks that we should go to the higher than selection, far from it. But Alex wanted to point out, and I think this is very, very fair and important to include here, that this is, on paper, a slightly advantageous matchup for Julius Randle. The Grizzlies plus 0.14 fantasy points per minute to the position, of 15% points boost, and it's also a positive steals and blocks matchup for Randle here going up against the Grizzlies. But I think for me, from a real basketball perspective, I don't see it as a plus matchup. I think it clearly, right, on paper, you see those figures, you hear those figures. But going up against Triple J, going up against a big body like Zach Edey, being 8-point dogs here, I'm going to follow what we call the noggin model here and the FTN fantasy model because it, like, even with those things factored in, the model, right, we run the projections, it factors in the pace. It factors in these other things that Alex is bringing up, but we've still got him projected for just 35.6 fantasy points. So I saw this 39.35 line, immediately slotted it into some of my entries. You cross-check that with what the projections say here at FTN, right around 35.5 fantasy points in 34 minutes rather, is the projection here this morning. I'm a big fan of the under, or the lower than rather, on Julius Randle, 39.35 fantasy points. And then I've got a 5th pick here this morning. And that is going to be also from, it's right here. This is going to be the 2 p.m. Eastern tip-off here. Pistons at Rockets here. And I see in the chat our guy Josh JJ popping up in here. Good to see Josh. Hope you had a good weekend, my friend. I heard it was a decent MMA card on Saturday, so hopefully you enjoyed that. Good to see you, Josh. So I'm going here, and this, of the 5 now that we've talked about, this is my least favorite of the 5, I think. Cade Cunningham, higher than 44.65 fantasy score. Like, this is a tough matchup against the Rockets. They're 7.5-point dogs here, 223 implied total. And Amen Thompson came into the game, the day rather, questionable. He is confirmed available to play. But Cade Cunningham, we've got him projected for 46.9 fantasy points here today. So we're getting over a 2-point fantasy point advantage on this line compared to our projection here at FTN. And Cade has just been so good, not just so good of late, but on the season. But with Jaden Ivey out of the lineup, first of all, he's over in 6 of his last 8, Ivey or not. And in 12 games without Jaden Ivey this season, he's over this fantasy point prop number in 9 of 12. So would I have loved this prop even more if I'm in Thompson's sat? Absolutely. But even with him in, we had him projected in, and we've got Cade projected more than 2 points clear of this line. So higher than 44.65 fantasy points would be my 5th pick. Now, Alex did beat me to this one this morning because you know how Alex loves him some stocks props. So we're going back to an old reliable here. It didn't come through for us, I think, Friday or Saturday when we ran that. May have been Saturday morning against the Celtics. But we've got 2.5 stocks here for Dyson Daniels once again. That gets us to a 6-pick play. And we've got Dyson Daniels projected for north of 3.8 stocks total here tonight for the Hawks against the Knicks, right? It is not a plus stocks matchup there, but model is factoring that in, and we have such an advantageous projection there. I'm going to keep rolling this Dyson Daniels stocks pick out there if Underdog is going to continue to give it to us. So that's another pick that our subscribers already had here this morning, but that rounds us out for a 6 pick. There was also an NFL pick that has been given to our subscribers in that Mark Williams entry that I know Alex is over the moon on, called it a home run to me here. And like, what did he say? A home run. What did he say was our home run, even ladder opportunity last week, right? Was that Saquon Barkley pick, which I think he cleared that 49.5 longest rush ladder twice yesterday, right? So that NFL pick, I'm going to hold off on giving that out here on the stream because that is one of Alex's favorite picks. He's given it to our subscribers already, and I imagine he's going to talk about it on a stream soon, whether it's your main slate matchups, whether it's your For the Millie later this week, or maybe on the dime tomorrow. So subscribers have that pick. We love that one as well. You can throw that into any of these NBA picks here today, like Alex did in that 3-pick entry this morning. But this is going to be our 6-pick play here for the stream today. So we will throw that in there. And that, once again, Jarrett Allen higher than 34.85 fantasy points. Darius Garland higher than 22 points. John Morant higher than 37.55 fantasy points. Julius Randle lower than 39.35 fantasy points. Cade Cunningham higher than 44.65 fantasy points. And Dyson Daniels higher than 2.5 stocks. See Josh saying, crushed MMA. Love to hear it, man. Love to hear it. I know you're always in those MMA streets. So let's jump into the DFS side of things here because, of course, with lock at 2 p.m. Eastern, I will be heading after this stream into our Discord channel. We'll get our ownership projections updated once again. We'll get our top plays in there. I know Adam Strangis just had his core article, I believe, submitted. That should be up on the site now or in a few minutes if it isn't already. So let's jump over here. Looks like they took down that Garland line over at Prize Picks. Let's jump over to the ownership projections and the GPP scores here at FTN Fantasy this morning. And let's talk about this slate again. MLK Day, we've got games all day. And both sites, DraftKings and FanDuel, have given us a 5-game main slate here, starting at 2 with Pistons and Rockets, concluding with that 5 p.m. Eastern tip-off of Celtics at Warriors. So then we do have 2 games on the night slate. For our subscribers, I will also be around in chat for that 2-game slate here this evening, but we're getting started early this afternoon. If we go ahead and sort by GPP scores, you can see Nick Richards at the top, Santi Aldama also with a double-digit GPP score. And so I guess we can start talking about that Phoenix side, right, in that Phoenix and Cleveland matchup. That is a 3:30 tip-off here. Cavs 8-point favorites at home, 237 implied total. But Nick Richards, again, made his debut for this Phoenix Suns team over the weekend, coming over in the trade from Charlotte last week. Nick Richards did come off the bench, as Coach Budenholzer had told us when the trade was made that he would come off the bench until he was acclimated. Unless I missed him saying that he will continue to come off the bench, I think that he's acclimated enough. Nick Richards, like, this is their guy. There's a reason Nick Richards played 29.5 minutes last game, and we saw Oso Ighodaro play just 5 minutes. We saw Mason Plumlee, who got the start, play just 13 minutes. Nick Richards is their starting center going forward. Whether that happens today or not remains to be seen, but we did just get just shy of 30 minutes out of Nick Richards in his debut against the Pistons on Saturday. So we've got him in for 29 minutes here, kind of assuming the start, and that minutes projection would not go down too much lower than that. Even if he's off the bench, we see how important he's going to be to Coach Budenholzer's rotation. They went and got this guy. For whatever reason, Nick Richards is the answer there. And then Santi Aldama, I think, again, just jumping out of that game for a second and just paying attention to the top of the GPP scores here. Aldama makes some sense to me as well in tournaments. We've seen him get his minutes back a little bit over the last few games playing against the Spurs. Now, they were shorthanded without John Morant in that one, and G.G. Jackson is coming back, but in the last two games, both against the Spurs, 27, and then just shy of, did just crest 30 minutes in that blowout win over the Spurs, and we know how good Santi has been from a point per minute perspective this season. Santi Aldama, 1.16 DraftKings points per minute at 4,900 here. If we can get him into the mid or upper 20s in minutes, again, averaging 25.2 on the season, that's going to feel pretty good as well at 15% projected ownership. Then you see Garland, you see Jarrett Allen. We talked about them. Trace Jackson Davis, though, with a healthy GPP score, rather, at 6% ownership. That makes some sense to me. In the last game of the night with Draymond Green out, Trace Jackson Davis minutes should be extra solid there, 5,600. Not a great matchup, but the ownership is not there. I agree with the model there saying that TJD is a strong tournament play in our large field tournaments here today. But Garland and Jarrett Allen look fantastic, and really the entirety of Cleveland. We should get another start out of Karis LeVert. Point and shooting guard eligible. We'd love to go back to that shooting guard small forward eligibility that we had for what feels like multiple seasons. But Karis LeVert here, 4,200 if he starts. You can absolutely get you plenty of Karis LeVert, but Max Strus, Dean Wade, even Georges Niang, I think you can run the minivan out there today for value if you want to get a little bit different. Again, I would prefer Strus or LeVert, and then prefer the starter of those two. Dean Wade should start again. Perfectly fine running out some Dean Wade here, but you saw in that game against the Cavs, or against the Wolves, rather, on Saturday, you see Strus come off the bench and play over 27 and a half minutes. Niang off the bench played 29 minutes. You got Karis LeVert for 25 minutes, right? Dean Wade for 27 minutes. So all of these value options are in play here. You also, Ty Jerome, 3,400 is not crazy, but the spends, of course, also attractive here, whether it's Donovan Mitchell, who had a 44.5% usage rate in that game without Mobley on Saturday, Darius Garland, who had a 32.2% usage rate, and of course you are saving $900, dropping from Mitchell to Garland on DraftKings, and Jarrett Allen at 6,600. Love him. We talked about him in the props section, 1.28 FanDuel points per minute. I think he looks solid on both sides. Over there on FanDuel, right? You still got Jarrett Allen with that power forward eligibility, 7,500. Get yourself some Jarrett Allen. Get yourself some Cavs here today. Looking at the ownership. Top four are Cavs, right? So you're not getting different, but we stress it, week after week. Just because a player is high owned does not mean that you should necessarily fade them. And I think today that these Cleveland guys are good chalk. I certainly would not put all three of these top-owned guys in Karis LeVert, Max Strus, and Georges Niang. I would not put all three of those guys into a lineup that feels like you're stretching yourself pretty thin on a slate that will have some other usable value in that price range. And so I think that's how you can get a little bit different, is maybe you play two of those Cavs, one of the spend-up Cavs, and then differentiate with some of this Minnesota value going up, in an up pace matchup against Memphis, something of that sort. And you can see, right, Randall, Reed, Gobert, all here in the top 10 or top 12 of the ownership in the morning run on DraftKings. Jaden McDaniels at 4,500 there as well. Ant at 9,100. So the field right now, Cavs and Wolves, is where the ownership is really concentrating. Talked about Aldama being a little bit sneaky there, but I think we can also look to some of these other Memphis options. You see them not getting a ton of interest in terms of their ownership, but 8,400 for John Morant when we just saw him 2 games ago, right? Like, and he is going to play today. He was questionable coming in. He's upgraded to probable here this morning. And we're getting news now. This will be for the night slate. Zion ruled out. Eve Misi ruled out. DeJounte Murray in. So we'll deal with that for the night slate in the chat. Just going to talk about the main slate here today. But again, going back to John Morant, explosive, playing against this Minnesota team who I'm just not super scared about attacking their defense either. You look at the 237 implied total, the 6.5 point spread in favor, or 6 point rather spread in favor of Morant and the Grizzlies. I like Ja as a tournament pivot there at 8,400 if he's not going to be picking up. We can see, 12%. He's got a positive GPP score there. I like Ja Morant a good bit at 8,400. We talked about Santi Aldama, right? If Zach Edey gets the start, can go there, 4,100. Again, I would prefer maybe spending up a little bit on, I mentioned Trace Jackson Davis, of course. Nick Richards, I think, is going to be in a ton of my lineups here today. Even in the tough matchup against Jared Allen, that's just going to be a minutes play for me, again, assuming that he starts. On the other side of this game, the Minnesota guys, you can go to Rudy Gobert at 5,400. Is it overly exciting? No, but he's 5,400. And we talked about this when he was, I think, 49 last. No, he never got down below 5K, but it's like 5,200. Like, you don't need much outside of a double-double and a block or two from Rudy Gobert to get on top of that price tag. So now we're getting Dante DiVincenzo. Shams just tweeting, out indefinitely due to his left big toe injury, and will receive a different opinion from doctors. So this Minnesota team just going to be even that much more shorthanded for the time being. You saw Rob Dillingham getting back into this rotation, 13 and 17 minutes over his last 2 games, 3,200. Probably not for me on this main slate, but maybe on the showdown. Today is you have multiple opportunities for showdown contests here today. So keeping that in mind, right? You still got sub 4K on Mike Conley, sub 4K on Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Makes some sense to me. One game we haven't talked a ton about yet is New York and Atlanta. And this game has multiple pieces of news that we are still waiting on. We've got Trae Young and Jalen Johnson probable. Still no Zach Graham on the Hawks side of things. So there's not a ton for me to love. On that Hawks side, I think Jalen Johnson not picking up a ton of ownership, that could make some sense. He got right back to his big minutes last time out, and he has had a lot of success in the 2 games that they have played against this Knicks team this year. Played 41 minutes back on December 11th. In the Garden, 58 3/4 DK points in that one for Jalen Johnson. And then back on November 6th, 39 minutes, 56 1/4 DK points. So Jalen Johnson has found a lot of success in this matchup this season. Again, it's just a 2-game sample size. But if I'm looking to attack one of these Hawks guys that are low owned, you look at Jalen Johnson picking up just 4% projected ownership with the positive GPP score there in the model. John Morant, Jalen Johnson, looking like 2 of my favorite low-owned spend-ups here, a little over an hour out from lock. On the Knicks side, Q tags on Karl Anthony Towns, on Josh Hart. If we could get that news, 1:57 Eastern, that would be perfect. Have people scrambling, have people panicking. And if Towns sits again and Josh Hart plays, I think you can certainly go to Josh Hart, see if you can pick up one of those Josh Hart Knicks specials, those triple doubles that he's been picking up. I want to say he's got double-digit triple doubles now in his career, all of them with the Knicks. Precious Achiuwa as well. If Karl Anthony Towns is out, Jericho Sims will probably start. Precious Achiuwa is the guy you would want of those 2 value options. And Precious, power forward eligible, play him at forward today. We've got enough center options that I think that's, he would be just in my forward slots if it does break that way. Of course, if Josh Hart and Karl Anthony Towns sit, you probably get a Precious start then alongside Jericho Sims. It could be Deuce McBride. It could be Campaign. Maybe Tibbs goes way out in left field and plays Landry Shamet, but we would have to deal with that when we get that news if both of these guys sit. If Towns plays, though, 9,700 against this Hawks team, we talked about Jalen Johnson and like game log watching the 2 games that these teams have played already this season. Cat, even better, averaging 64.5 DK points in 37 minutes a game through those 2 meetings. So we'd have a lot of, and then of course, McCall Bridges, Jalen Brunson, OG Anunoby. All of these Knicks are in play and interesting if everybody is in, the 5 starters rather. And then if we lose 1 or 2 of those Q tags, we're getting even more ownership. We're getting even more exposure to these Knicks in our lineups. Boston and Golden State, everybody, it should be a go here for the Celtics. They're on the road out there in the Bay. Celtics are 10-point road favorites here with a 224 implied total. You get to 1 Celtic in your lineup, that feels pretty good. More than 2 feels really thin because these guys are pretty fully priced here. Drew Holiday at 4,900, I think we should have some elevated interest in relative to how much attention we're paying to this team just because of the discount we're getting on Drew. And again, it's a rightful discount. I don't think he's been over 30 fantasy points in the last 3 games. Yeah, he certainly has not, but he still has those 32, 35, even 40 DK point games in his bag. And we should get low 30s in minutes in this matchup from Drew Holiday. So I'm a fan of getting to some Boston, especially like in an MME build. I'll have some of these guys, but not going overboard. And then on that Golden State side, right? Steph 9K against the Celtics. I'm good. I just think I'd rather get to the Cleveland spend ups, like maybe even some of the Phoenix spend ups on the other side of that game, getting to a Booker or to a Kevin Durant. Again, like give me Jalen Johnson, give me John Morant, give me those Knicks guys, assuming everybody plays. Give me some of those Rockets. I kind of glossed over Pistons and Rockets a little bit. Amin Thompson available to play here. These guys are priced up. Tari Eason is back. 5,600 for Tari Eason. Like, you could. I don't think he's going to show up a ton for me without me forcing him in, and I'm not looking to do that here today. Jalen Green, 7,800. Fred, 77. Şengün, 93. Şengün, probably my favorite guy here, but again, no priorities for me from Houston, and no real priorities for me from Detroit either, considering they are fully healthy outside of the Jaden Ivey piece. So I think that pretty much does it, kind of spinning through this 5-game main slate. We are just smack dab an hour away from lock, so I'm going to retire to the NBA DFS Discord here at FTN Fantasy. Appreciate everybody tuning in, sticking with me here today on the solo Monday morning edition of the Daily Dime here at FTN Fantasy. And we'll be back tomorrow, right? Alex will be back here. We'll be attacking Tuesday's slate, same time, same place. So enjoy your Monday, everybody. I'll do the same. We'll see you back here on Tuesday for another edition of the FTN Fantasy Daily Dime. Good luck today, and we'll see you on Tuesday. Goodbye.